Hello again. I just finished my daily writing today, and I wanted to share something with you that I've been thinking about today. I've been thinking about it for a while, but I thought I'd share it with you today, and that's that we always are going to have a sense that we're someplace in our writing, whether we feel that way about a specific thing, like a story that we're writing, that we're someplace at the beginning of it or middle of it or the end of it, or whether we're thinking about it in regards to ourselves as writers or our process as writers or our process of writing, that we may always have a sense that we are someplace at a beginning or a middle or an end of it. But what I want to suggest in this video is that we try to embrace our writing without putting any kind of mental stock in where we are in the process of our creativity. Whether that's, again, whether putting stock in that I'm almost at the end of this story, or, I'm in the middle of it, feeling that exhaustion, or whether it's how you feel about yourself as a writer, that I'm just starting and there's so much to learn, I've learned everything I need to learn. Why isn't this happening for me, right? These different this mental activity we have about writing, to kind of let go of putting any kind of mental stock in where you might be, and just embrace this journey of writing as the process, as the reward itself. I'm going to be harping on that in these next few videos because I keep coming around to this. I continue to come back to this, that the essence, no matter what else we think we might need in our writing, the essence of fulfilling our writing dreams really is within the practice, the devotion, the process. So you might not ever know where you're going. You don't need to know where you're going. You just embrace where you are. And I know for me, I have spent many years thinking about where I am and what I need to do and how I'm going to get where I'm going. And I know when I was writing my first collection of poetry, A Strange Catechism, I had been working on that collection already for a couple of years, and I thought I was pretty much done. I had begun to send it off to publishers, submitting it to book contests, because that's one way that poetry collections get published, is to win a contest. And I felt like I was really at the end of what I wanted to say with this book. But really, I was just at this big curve in the road, or that I couldn't see beyond. And so what was happening, at some point, I kept getting rejection after rejection. Maybe that alerted me, perhaps, that I wasn't as far along as I thought I was. But I remember one day I sat on the floor with all of the poems spread out before me, and I realized that the book I had before me wasn't what the book was really about. It dawned on me that the writing had taken me someplace that I consciously didn't want to go. And it was also about a subject I had never written about before, which was the death of my younger brother. I've mentioned this in previous videos. But I thought I had been writing kind of about a fictionalized person that I had met, who was standing in a supermarket parking lot and turning in a counterclockwise in a circle. And in fact, I was writing about this person, but through this woman, I was writing my own story. I just couldn't see it. In fact, I was so blind to it because I was telling myself the story of where I was and what I was writing about, as opposed to just kind of being present with what I was really writing. But all of that aside, the writing itself, the process, brought me around to the realization that I was really writing about the death of my younger brother. And once I had that, and once I surrendered to this idea that this is where the book was going, and what it was really about, and what the poems were really about, I could write in then to these holes within the collection that now I saw that they were there, and I needed to fill them with other poems. And so that's what I set out to do, wrote a few more poems, and the book was accepted for publication at that point. And I guess I had to realize that I was writing about something that I needed to serve, and not writing a book that would serve me. But as I mentioned, that the story that I was telling through these poems, that I had to serve it. So in that process of going back and looking at this collection in a new way and writing poems into those holes, there were other poems that had to go, that no longer belonged in the collection. And was that difficult? For sure. I had to let go of poems that I spent a lot of time on and a lot of energy on, and I thought were actually good poems, but they no longer served where I was with this book and what I wanted to do with it. So that isn't to say that those poems that were then left out, taken out of the final manuscript, were a waste of my time. I never feel like anything we write is a waste of our time. It always is serving. Whatever we write is serving us in some way. And I know that those poems that were left out made it possible for me to realize finally what the book was that I needed to write, and probably informed those poems that I had to write in order to finish the book. So everything that we write serves our discovery and our writing journey. It might not help, I think, again, to go back to this embracing where we are. Just embrace this process. If we cling too tightly to where we think we are, we may never see the larger picture or the larger journey or the road before us. So I say this because had I clung to where I thought I was going with this book, or what I thought this original book was supposed to be, I wouldn't have been able to write the book that ultimately I needed to write. So now, maybe you'll never encounter this in your own writing, but I think that you will, in somewhere in your process, think of yourself as being in some place. As I mentioned earlier to lead off this video, that you will think of yourself in some place as a writer, that you are progressing or you're not progressing, that you can't do it or that you can do it, that the story is almost finished or that you are a million years from ever finishing it. I'm saying let go of those things. Let go of this idea that you are anywhere in your writing, and just be with the process, with this journey. If you're beginning to write, don't think necessarily the limitations of beginning. Just accept that you're beginning and feel the excitement of beginning, and try not to lament how much there might be to do or to learn, or how long it's going to take you to write the book or the story or the poem or the memoir, or whatever it is, the short story, the essay, whatever it is you are going to write. Just be with the process. Attend only to that. You can make the longest journey, as they say, this is cliche, the longest journey begins with what, one step, a single step or something like that. You know, our writing is day to day, it's moment to moment, it's breath to breath, honestly. And if we attend to our writing breath to breath, moment to moment, day to day, soon enough we build a very strong practice. And this is what I go back to, I harp on. This building of this practice, this devotion, is what sustains us as writers, which ultimately enables us to achieve our writing dreams, whatever that might be for you. For me, it was publication. When I began my second book, I wasn't thrilled with the theme that I was kind of wanting to explore, which were themes of exile and alienation. This seemed to be what was in my subconscious, coming to me consciously. And it just felt like a really painful, difficult subject I wasn't all that psyched to get into. And yet, when I found myself writing daily, this seemed to be what was at the forefront of my mind. I have no idea why, where it was coming from. I had to get comfortable with it, even though writing that second book was one of the most uncomfortable experiences I've ever had as a writer. It was a dark book to write. I felt like I saw things very black and white and very shadowy for a couple of years. In order to write the book, I was experiencing my own separation, my own feelings of alienation and exile. I was exploring those. I don't know how else to really write about those themes convincingly, except to sink into the experience of those things within myself, the experience of exile, the experience of separation, and the experience of alienation. It took me 3 years to write this book, and I wanted to quit so many times. When I thought about where I was in this process, the poems often felt like they were falling apart or disintegrating before my eyes. But I kept on. I continued to write. I just tried to continue to embrace the uneasiness that I was experiencing, the alienation that I was experiencing. And finally, I remember I did decide to quit, and I was driving my son to school. He was 15 years old at the time. I was driving him to school in the morning, and I was talking to him about the project, and I was saying, I've been working on this thing for several years. I think I'm going to quit. I'm giving it up. I don't think the poems are working. I don't think the book is coming together. Again, in my mind, I felt like I was somewhere in this process. It should be almost finished, is what I was thinking. These poems should be coming together. But that's not where I was in my process. And thankfully, my son says to me at that point, and I had told that he knew what the book was about. I had been discussing with him and what was on the news at the time, which was the migrant crisis in Europe that was going on. This was 2016, 2017. And he says to me, just so matter-of-factly while I'm driving him to school, well, Dad, why don't you go do something to help these people that you're writing about? Why don't you go actually help people who are experiencing exile, or who have lost their homes, etc. And that was such a powerful kind of statement from him. It just hit me. And it was like, embrace the experience, do something about it, take action. And within a week, I was on a plane going to Greece to volunteer to work in migrant villages, their refugee camps in Lesvos, on the island of Lesvos in Greece. And I guess that was 2018. Now that I remember the date correctly, it was March of 2018. That experience pulled these poems together, because it was then that I felt my own terror, my own vulnerability, my own sense of being away from my family, doing something that was challenging to me. But more important, I was actually helping, I would like to think, people who were in a much more dire situation, who had come from war-torn countries, so in much more experiencing the realities of exile and alienation and separation, more so than I was. I remember meeting, for example, Ahmed, a 15-year-old boy from Afghanistan who walked and took buses from Afghanistan to Turkey and then got on an inflatable raft to cross the Mediterranean from Turkey to the island of Lesvos. And he was in this camp. I got to hear his story. And I met a young Syrian woman who had been studying English literature, of all things, in Syria before the civil war and had to flee during the civil war, and now was living in this camp. And her dream was to get to England and study in London, to continue to study English literature. She was an English poetry fan and really wanted to write poetry. So hearing these stories, coupled with my own experiences, things I had been writing about for a couple of years, and experiences from my own past, really helped me pull together this second manuscript. And then finally it was published as a machine for remembering. So this process, I could have cut this second book off at any point. I could have, like the first book, I could have stayed to where I thought I was headed. Both processes of writing both books required me to embrace a different outcome, a different journey than the one I thought I was on. They both made me re-examine where in the process I was. I was at a different point in each than I had thought I was. So trust your writing process. And again, as you develop your practice and your devotion, you will learn to trust your own process, your own instincts, your own intuition, your own creative suggestions that wake you up in the middle of the night, that tell you to turn left when you thought for sure you were supposed to turn right, but by not turning right, you encounter the person, the situation, the serendipitous moment that informs your journey and moves you forward even when you don't realize you are stuck. So devote yourself, practice, write every day, show up for your work, be present for your work, which ultimately is you being present for you, for what you need to express, for your expression, for what is finding its way into the world through you. I don't know how else to put this. This is the beauty of what we do as creatives, that we allow, we are the vehicle through which, call it what you want, creation, God, life force, cosmic energy, mystery, the muse, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. But this, what wants to come through from formless into form, comes through you. You are the vehicle. You are the instrument through which it comes into the world. So this is what we do when we sit and attend and work and apply our focus to the page daily. Embrace the journey of writing. So, how about a prompt for today for you to write about? Write about getting lost. Write about a time that you got lost or took a wrong turn and where this wrong turn led you. How did you get found? Or what did you discover by taking this wrong turn? I hope it was beautiful. I think when we surrender that what happens to us is beautiful or can be beautiful, when we can get out of our own way, out of our own mind, out of the thinking that I'm headed for that destination, but allow the destination to reveal itself to us. In fact, maybe we never have a destination. We just keep going and we just keep writing and we just keep discovering new material to bring through. I think that's a beautiful way to live. It's a beautiful practice. It has certainly made my life more beautiful, and I'm grateful for that. So, I hope you write deeply today. I know that if you do write, you will write beautifully, because beautiful is what you are. Blessings.